Um, I am compelled to have a chat. I've been meaning to write, but I'm not very well, so I haven't done it, and I can't settle down to get any work or rest done because I've got all this stuff going on in my head. Scotland's spicy at the moment. Some interesting stuff happening in politics. Interesting if you like, you know, women having rights and safety, and that science is solid and medicine runs on, first do no harm. If you like all of those things, then it's really, really spicy living in Scotland at the moment. And I have a sense of anxiety. So instead of writing it all down, which is going to take too long, I thought, even though I look like rubbish and I sound worse, and I am tired. The reason I'm tired is because of the burden that I feel with this gender reform bill that the government in Scotland are trying to push through. Despite all the evidence that I have given them, me and thousands of others, who knows how many, they're going to put it through. And the reason that that's happening is partly because some of them definitely believe that they're doing the right thing, and some of them, I would say, my own personal judgment is they know fine well it's going to do harm, but they don't care, and that's because they're prioritising something over people's well-being, which it's not great. It's not great in a politician. However, it's what happens, isn't it? So we're going to have a situation where 16-year-olds are going to be able to decide by themselves that they are of the opposite sex. The wording is gender, but they mean sex. So at 16, you'll be able to get yourself a document which says that you are, they've created a legal fiction. So you are actually, so your body is female, but in law you're male. And that means that you can change all of your documentation. So you can change your birth certificate, you can change your medical records, wherever you work or study is compelled to address you as if you were actually of the opposite sex. Now, I have no doubt that for some people that brings a great deal of comfort and it makes life tolerable and manageable. But my preference would be that those people make that change under the supervision of, you know, a specialist medic that understands about psychological distress and has been able to rule out other reasons why a person might have gender issues, like, for instance, being neurodiverse. A high percentage of these people that land up being referred to what was the Tavistock, but has been shut down in April because their practices are so shoddy that they don't meet the criteria to be considered a decent, safe service. The press that, you know, disagrees with me has presented it as this is going to be a good thing because there'll be more regional centres, which is true, because it's not fair that people have to drive a long, long way to go and get healthcare. It's better to have regional centres. But my hope is that those regional centres, you know, perhaps make sure that there's informed consent and a differential diagnosis before they put people onto life-changing medication. Anyway, in theory, you should get yourself an assessment by somebody who actually understands gender and comorbidities and is able to rule out that, you know, something terrible happened to you in your childhood and what you need is some talking therapy. Or, you know, we don't know why, 40% of these young people have got autism or other types of neurodiversity. That's in the Tavistock's figures, 40%, despite which they put them on to puberty blockers. If you don't go through puberty, what are you? You don't become an adult because your puberty has been blocked. So the brain maturation doesn't happen. You will end up being a 30-year-old, 50-year-old, potentially 90-year-old juvenile. We don't know that that won't happen to you because the work hasn't been done. Because how could you do that experiment? How could you do, you know, good science is you know, an RCT, a random control trial, where this group get that treatment, that group get that treatment, and at the end of the trial you compare, you get your data, you figure out which group did better. We'll not do that again. You can't do that. You can't do that to children. That's completely unethical. So we're just assuming. I wouldn't even call it an experiment, like the press often say that the critical press say that this approach to gender care for kids is an experiment. I would dispute that, because at least in an experiment you've got a hypothesis. Like, you've got an aim, you keep track of the data, you follow up. If somebody doesn't participate in your experiment, you might follow them up to find out why they dropped out, which has not been happening, which is why they shut down. So all of that is going to become law in Scotland on Tuesday by Wednesday. And I'm not happy about it. By which I mean I'm worried, really worried that harm is going to be done not just to these children who've got a gender difference, but to people who have transitioned, because there will be so few safeguardings that anybody can declare themselves to be of the opposite sex. You just have to say that you have lived in your adopted sex. They say gender, but they mean sex, for 3 months. Now, I don't know what that means because they haven't defined it. What they seem to mean is that you have a name that is traditionally given to somebody of one sex. You have a style of clothing, and you change your utility bills and things like that so that it's in your adopted name. You insist on pronouns being appropriate for that sex, and you make a really solemn promise that you're going to live like this for the rest of your life. Pinky promise. You really mean it. You give them a £5, and that's it. And with that document, then it means that a male person can get into any single-sex space in Scotland without being challenged. So, if I was running a rape crisis centre that I had just funded by myself, because the government won't give the women who are traumatised space to heal away from male people, if I had funded this fantastic resource, Byra's Place, do have a look at it, then when this bill comes in, I would not be able to legally refuse a male person access. Now, can we think of any male people who might want to access vulnerable women? I don't know. Let's think about jails. We have male people convicted of sexual assault in the women's wing. 6'5" person, sexual predator, convicted paedophile. Most of the women that are in jail have been assaulted. You know, these are not women that have an easy life like mine. I have no idea what their lives are like. Well, I've got a bit, which is why I'm really bloody angry that they're in a prison cell that they can't escape from, and that we have state-sponsored rape. It's just staggering. A civilised country would not do that. There's a prison officer who's just been awarded compensation for her PTSD because she, at her work, was given the job of watching an inmate every 15 minutes because that person was in suicide watch. You know, a lot of people that are in jails have got a great deal of distress. They need to be cared for. They need to be monitored. That's completely correct. That person was being protected. But that person was a male person in a female jail and spent the whole day masturbating because that person was getting off on the idea of this woman, this female officer, being forced to watch him indulge in a sex act. Funnily enough, that wasn't very good for that employee. What are we doing? Why is that reasonable? I don't think it's in any way reasonable, so I've been speaking up about it. There's been a few things that's happened. One, I went to watch the debate, the committee meeting, and I'd never done that before. I think I'm reasonably politically engaged in that I know who my elected representatives are, I know how to fill out a petition, I know, you know, where to find them and what sort of expectations I should have of the person who's my councillor, my MSP, my MP, my First Minister. I know how it kind of jigsaws together, but I'm not a civil servant. I don't understand a great deal about government and how it operates. So I was interested to go along and watch the committee, and I actually thought, so naive, that these people, these elected representatives, would listen to each piece of evidence, each submission. They would listen carefully, they would consider it, and they would make a judgment based on all of the evidence. But what I watched was the second most powerful person in the country. Shona Robison is the Cabinet Secretary for, I've forgotten, a whole heap of stuff. She's got a busy job. She's got a lot of responsibility. £180,000 a year. She was sitting straight opposite me. And when another MSP was making a submission that fitted with the SNP's view, she was paying attention. Somebody said she was like a little meerkat. Head was up, she's paying attention, a lot of nodding, a lot of making notes. When somebody from the Tory party or somebody who was not in the committee but had come in, MSP had come in to say things that their constituents had shared with them that they were concerned about, she put her head down, she talked to her buddy, I assume he was a civil servant, I don't know who he was, a lot of very intent nodding, yes, lots of note-taking. But the note-taking was different from the meerkat note-taking. It's not, because I could see her. I'm sitting 2 feet behind her. Well, that's an exaggeration. I was in the second row behind her. I could see her note paper, I could see her hand, I could see her big pen. And I judged, I'm afraid, I wanted my second most powerful person in the country to have a really nice pen, big pen. Maybe she's like me, maybe she loses pens all the time. She wasn't note-taking. She had a piece of paper that had notes on it, and the notes were highlighted in yellow, and she was underlining the notes that were already highlighted, and then she was drawing round bits of writing in a little box. And then that top bit of paper she put to the bottom of the pile, and she did it in the next one. She was ignoring the people who were speaking to her, in that her head was down and she's very intently performing being busy. And I say performing literally. What I was watching was behaviour that I would expect from a 15-year-old girl who did not want to be in her chemistry class. Performing insolence. £180,000 a year, and her job is to listen. And if she doesn't listen, she's not going to make a wise decision, is she? So I watched this. The bit of paper that she'd scribbled on went to the bottom of the pile. She had about 6 bits of paper, and then she started in the next one. And eventually, the first bit of paper made its way back to the top of the pile, and she started doodling round it again. And I didn't get cross. I wasn't furious. Well, I was, but not in an aggressive way. Sometimes when you see something that's just terrifying, you react with anger because it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to me that she has got this serious situation that can do harm to children and women and vulnerable people, and she's not even listening. So I got up on my feet and said I waited till one of the Labour MSPs had finished her submission that wasn't being listened to. I got up on my feet and said to the chair, Joe Fitzpatrick, who's an SNP minister, did he have any powers to compel my Cabinet Secretary to pay attention? I can't actually remember what I said, because what my intention was to plead with him and say, this is really important. Why are you allowing her to behave like this? Why are you not checking her? She needs to be paying attention and she's not. It would appear that what came out of my mouth was a bit like a cross mum telling off a kid, and that makes total sense to me now, because my impression was she was a 15-year-old girl that didn't want to be in her chemistry class. The behaviour was exactly the same. So I said something about I couldn't believe that I was watching such contempt for parliamentary process. And I still feel like that, because I know that I'd read in the papers that, you know, Scottish Parliament's like a pantomime. I didn't expect it to be literal. I didn't expect to actually watch it unfold in front of me. It was absolutely shocking. Anyway, so I left. What was really good was the security person let me finish. I only spoke for about a minute. Went out and burst into tears in the corridor, and a very nice policeman got me a glass of water and was very kind and let me, and another thing, for 5 minutes or so. And then I thought, why are you here? And I said to him, why are you here? And he said, oh, there's police that are, you know, they look after the Parliament. And I said, do you often cover the committee hearings? And he said, only the ones we're expecting trouble at. Because I am trouble. I am a middle-aged woman with an opinion, and the preceding meeting, one of my fellow opinionated women had been refused entry for wearing a scarf. She's trying to engage in democracy, and they refused to let her in because she was wearing a scarf. It was a scarf in suffragist colours. Now, the rules apparently say you're not allowed to wear political slogans, you're not allowed to wear flags. It's fine, makes sense. Suffragist colours of scarves, good grief. So that was raised in the main chamber, and apparently nobody knows why it happened. Well, we do. It was raised because we are there disagreeing fundamentally with Shona Robson's position, and they didn't want us in the room because it's awkward. It makes people feel uncomfortable. So bloody should. You're about to sterilise a generation of autistic kids. Good. You should feel awkward. I'll make you feel awkward. If you're going to do that, you do it understanding the consequences, and I hope you never sleep again. Anyway, that all died down. But about every 6 or 7 days or so, there's some woman in Edinburgh that lands up in the paper and the press because she just cannot keep her mouth shut, because this is so appalling. We are genuinely frightened about what's going on here. The hospital in Ayr Shanaren NHS, have said that a woman who on a ward says, I'm really not comfortable about being in a four-bedded bay with that male person, is akin to being a racist. A sick woman, an injured woman, a frightened woman going in to have God knows what kind of operation. Nobody's there by choice. If she doesn't want to be in a vulnerable situation where she's immobile, where she's in pain, if she's confused, in a state of undress, next to somebody that she sees as male, they're calling her a racist. Nancy Kelly did that too, actually. She was the lead of Stonewall, I think she still is. And she said that lesbian women who don't want to have sex with lesbian women who have penises are sexual racists. What? Anyway, the other night, not last night but the night before, there was a showing of a film at Edinburgh University which a very brave academic had organised. The film's called Adult Human Female. You can get it on YouTube or Vimeo or any of these things. And it's just a bunch of people talking about these issues, not just women, there's men in it as well, and they are discussing the impact on straight, gay, trans-identified adults and children, and what's going to be the impact on their lives and their work, in their social life, and why it matters to them, and why it's frustrating that our elected representatives aren't listening, and people that you would expect to have a balanced opinion are just jumping into this and taking away my rights without debate. The reason they were hosting it at Edinburgh is because the launch of this video, I forget what the word is, you know, when you have a big opening thing, was cancelled by a different institution because of the hateful content, and Eventbrite pulled it because of the hateful content. So this very smart academic got a room booked at Edinburgh Uni, and we were all going. There were 200 people going to see that film for free. It's great. And I got there a wee bit early, which is unusual for me. I was actually late. I was supposed to be going earlier to go and meet some of the women in the pub beforehand, but I was late getting there. And so I arrived early to the venue, and there was, I don't know, I thought there was about 60, but other people say there were 20 protesters outside, all wearing trans flags and pride flags, and they had little tables set up with leaflets and flyers. And I thought, oh, brilliant, great, I'll go and have a chat with them, because I am very motivated by hope that I'm wrong. I am really very, very keen to find somebody that can explain to me the reasons that I'm overreacting, that, you know, I'm worrying about stuff that isn't going to happen, and these are the reasons it's not going to happen, and here is the evidence, and you can calm your jets, it'll be fine. Silly you. That would make me so happy. So here's a bunch of people that are quite hard for me to access. What with me being a hateful bigot, they tend to, you know, just shout at me and run away. So I went up and I spoke to 7 different protesters who were all very nice, the vast majority of them. The first person I spoke to wasn't so nice. I said, oh, hello, I'm interested in what you're protesting about. Can I have a leaflet? And he said, this chap was nice, that there's a film being shown in the university that's got hateful, transphobic content, and they're there to argue the other side because they don't think that the film should be shown. And next to him there was a woman, he looked like he was in his mid-20s, the woman next to him looked about the same age, she had a mask on, he had a nice warm smile, and I said to him, oh right, okay, I have a ticket, I'm going in to see the film, and he sort of flinched. And I said, I'm really concerned that you think that it's hateful, because that's not my impression. And he said that it was, that it's transphobic and racist. And I said, oh, which bit of the film did you mean? And he sort of blinked because he hadn't seen the film. Which is what happened to me in the Fringe. My show got labelled as being transphobic and hateful by people who hadn't seen it. I get on social media a lot every time some comedian does something about transphobia. Then, you know, Dave Chappelle punching down. Which bit of his set did you think was hateful? So, oh, I haven't seen it, wouldn't see it. No, I don't watch that, I don't want to encourage him. And what's your point? It's just poor discipline. And the person I was speaking to was a PhD candidate, because we got chatting. And I said to him, so I'm a bit worried about your understanding about analysis. How are you going to get through a PhD if you are here to argue and debate a point about a film that you haven't even seen? That's really poor. That's like literally not doing your homework. And I've done my homework. That's why I'm here. Have you got any questions for me? And he understood nothing. He actually said, it was so sad, like he was a nice guy, we had a good chat, and he said that his impression was that people like me genuinely wanted trans people to be dead. Like, darling, that's why we're here. We're worried about that. We would like this community to have the same level of evidence as everybody else enjoys. That's what our fear is. You don't understand at all what's going on. And also, how much money are you paying Edinburgh University? Because if you're doing a PhD and this is your level of critical analysis, because a couple of things that he said, he was like, oh, Jesus wept, you're going to have to do better than that. Like, you're not a 15-year-old. You're a PhD candidate. Don't give me this bullshit. You know, pull your socks up, present an argument properly, and ask for your money back. Because if this is honestly the best you can do, you're not going to get through your doctorate, and that's outrageous, because I think it's about 40 grand a year for a foreign student to come and do a doctorate here. Anyway, while we're chatting, have you seen the film? No. the woman next to him with the mask on said that she hadn't seen the film and she wouldn't see the film. I said, well, can I ask you why? Like, I don't understand this. I don't understand why you would be protesting something that you're making assumptions about. That's really worrying. You're a student here. You might be a lecturer. This is not academic rigour. If you want to critique something, you should watch it and base your opinion on something solid, not just la 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 la. And she said to me that she couldn't watch the film because she was Jewish. And I said, okay, my understanding of the Talmud is minimal, to be fair. Why can you not watch the film? Because of your faith. And she said because the film was about the drinking of Jewish babies' blood. I can't take that person seriously. So I had the script from these people. Number one, you get told, have you ever met a trans person? Which annoys me because that's a leading question with a number of assumptions behind it. Number one, you don't know anything about me. You don't know anything about my family. You don't know anything about my social life. You don't know anything about my gender identity. Number two, these people kill themselves and they use data that has been laughed at. The figures that Stonewall and Mermaids put out there are based on, I think it was 28 people, self-selecting people. It's not even like a school level essay. It's not science, it's bullshit. It's not even a marketing survey, it's shit. You shouldn't be talking about it. It's really, really bad. And the Samaritans guidelines were that you don't talk about the reasons for somebody took their own life because there's a social contagion. But funnily enough, the person who's now in charge of the Samaritans was previously in charge of guiding, and Samaritans are changing their mind about that. It's unbelievable. This is a moral panic. This is how we treated gay people in the 80s. This is just the same as in the 60s. Before the 60s, if a kid was left-handed, we stopped them from using the left hand to write. We forced them to use the right hand. And now that we don't mind about that anymore, suddenly there's all these left-handed children that have erupted. I'm like, well, it's not quite the same because we don't cut the fingers and thumbs off of left-handed children so that they can write with their left hand. It's not the same. One of them said that was a threat, that he felt threatened by me. He said he was a he, by the way. And I said, well, that's fascinating to me because I am barely 5'4". I'm quite fat and I'm 50. You are over 6 feet tall. You've got 30 years in me and you're male. Why am I a threat? And he was good enough to talk to me about it, you know, and we established that the reason that he felt threatened was because I disagreed with him and that made him uncomfortable. And I suggested that that might be because he's not had a chance to hone his response. Because if his whole life, you know, because this has been around for a long time now, so since he was, you know, a teenager at school, he's had nothing but affirmation. He's had nobody saying anything other than, oh, go you, so brave, so stunning. And so I'm not surprised that it feels uncomfortable with me going, aye, but what about this, this and this? Because these are concepts that he's never come across. But feeling uncomfortable is not the same as being threatened, especially when you're thick and massive. Now, weirdly, uncomfortable is also a word that was used against me at the Fringe, where a person that knew me, had known me for about, 5 years or so, we'd worked together, asked if I didn't mind people being uncomfortable in my Fringe show. And I said, no, why would I mind? And she, if you know who Benjamin Butterworth is, you'll know the gasp. It was like that. You don't mind? No. It's a Fringe show. It's of no consequence. If they feel uncomfortable, there's a door. They can leave. I don't care. I've got their money. What do I care? And actually, I wrote back. I had to write to her. I had to email them repeatedly about stuff, but fuck, this life's too short. And I said to her, do you know what, if you only felt uncomfortable in my show, then I am upset about that because my aim was to make you incandescent with rage. I'm talking about medical misogyny, the state of women's health, women not being listened to, harm being done to them, women being denied health and happiness through the power of a fart joke, to be fair. But the point of the show, the reason I did the show, was to make you angry. And all I succeeded in doing was making you uncomfortable. So I'll adjust my script. Thanks for the feedback. What's the problem with people being uncomfortable? Why does this particular group of people feel so upset about a bit of discomfort? I spent a lot of time thinking about that in the fringe because I want to be wrong. Like, you know, is it a problem with people feel uncomfortable? No. And I concluded that the issue for that particular individual is that she's pretty fucking comfortable most of the time. So as soon as she's in the situation where she's like, oh, this feels really uncomfortable because I'm saying something that's new or you don't agree with or you just think is vile, then it becomes a big deal. Maybe what you need is a bit more discomfort because life is uncomfortable for the majority of people on the planet. Oh. Which is actually, you know, it is a point because these people that I spoke to, these 7 individuals who all agreed in the end that it was adorable. I didn't even prompt 4 of them. Looking at them, I think two of them said that they had friends or family who had a gender difference. So that's where their motivation was coming from, to stand outside in the freezing cold. I mean, it was about -8 or something. It was really cold. And you know, they're not doing that for fun. They're there because it's important to them. So I get that. They're there because somebody they care for has these issues and they thought that I wanted to stop them from accessing the healthcare that had helped them. Right, fair enough. I can get my head around that. 2 of them were, it's unfair of me to say, any sort of judgment, but given that I know, because I'm not a psychiatrist, but given that I know that there is a higher level of comorbidities in this population, particularly of neurodiversity, I would say that 2 of them, if they were friends or family or a patient of mine, I would be encouraging them to go and see somebody to see if they need a diagnosis of neurodiversity. Certainly one of them was unable to not interject, was unable to stand still, and was stimming. So, you know, when people that have got, you know, a neurodiversity, they will do repeated movement, and part of his stimming was twirling, right? So that's behaviour that I've seen many times before, and I think, yeah, I know what you've got going on, and I get that you're stressed because they had come along, there's 200 people filing past them, people that person thought wished harm on them. Like, I get that's stressful. I understand why this is manifesting itself. I just want you to be okay. But it would explain why, you know, you're quite so rigid in your thinking, I assume. And the other 3, I would say, were aggressive. Not all male. One was male, the other 2 were female. Just angry, just really, really angry, not able to listen, not able to ask many questions. Started off with, why do you think Mein Kampf is good? I have a lot of books that I need to read. I have a lot of books that I need to tidy. Yeah, I've got quite an extensive to-read list, and Mein Kampf isn't in there. And even if I did own a copy, it wouldn't be quite high up at the top. I'd be far more likely to go and, you know, dig out my Dale Spender or my Germaine Greer. I need to go and brush up and all of that stuff. No, Mein Kampf, why do you assume that I think it's good? You're assuming that I've read it, reflected on it, and liked it? That's pretty offensive, isn't it? They just shouted that I was a TERF, a bigot, blah, 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 blah. You know, that way that somebody asks you a question and you go to answer the question and they interrupt before you finish the question. Oh, then this isn't useful, is it? It's not a debate. Anyway, what happened was these activists got the show stopped. They stopped the filming. Now, me and another woman were standing talking to this group of trans-identified people. That was really constructive conversation, actually, and I learned loads of stuff, and I'm ever so grateful for the time. Everybody else filed out to go to a different room, to a different building, to watch this film, and by the time they got there, 3 trans-identified students of the university had barricaded it again and refused to let 200 people watch a film. 3 people. I don't know, I've only seen the photos because I wasn't there, but it looked like 2 were male and 1 was female but had transitioned. And they're pretty chuffed with themselves. The I assume trans man had put a big thing on Twitter going, oh, we just look like badasses. No, you look like naughty children. Why do 3 people get to stop the will of 200? This doesn't make any sense. If it was a vote, you wouldn't get your way. But they did. They did get their way. Security didn't help. One of the people who's the trans inclusion officer at the UCU at Edinburgh University spat at somebody. I got spat at in the fringe. It's a really aggressive, nasty, nasty thing to do. Spat at a male person. Elbowed a female person in the face. I don't know, perhaps that person's distressed, but I don't want that person in a toilet with a woman who has been assaulted by a male person, because they're threatening. Women can see it. That's what I said to the protesters outside. Like, I get what you're saying. I get that you think that these people are the most vulnerable in society, but have a look at the 2 groups, right? You've got a bunch of women, mostly middle-aged women, coming in groups of 2, 3, 10, because they're afraid, because you guys are shouting, calling them names. Most of them weren't shouting, to be fair. Occasionally there was. There's a kerfuffle. You're getting in their way. It's threatening. You don't know their history. 97% of women in the UK have been sexually assaulted. 1 in 5 of us have been raped. You're a bloke getting in front of her. Anyway, when I look at your group, what I see is a group of white middle-class people getting a tertiary education versus a bunch of frightened-looking women. You tell me who's more vulnerable. I can't bear it, I can't bear it. I can't bear that, you know, in Parliament, after my outburst, there was a meeting at night with 2 fantastic people that were willing to come and share their most intimate, awful stories. This is their private medical history, that they were willing to get up and share personal details with a bunch of politicians in order to try and get some common sense into this political process. And they are very, very brave. They're people that have detransitioned, so they transitioned very quickly. Got a problem with that. And then after a period of time realised that in fact this wasn't going to solve the problems. And you can't go back. That's why you have to be sure. You have to be absolutely sure that it's the correct form. And I don't believe that a 16-year-old who is self-diagnosed on TikTok can be sure. But a lot of the people who were on the committee didn't come to hear this submission. They didn't go and listen to the detransitioners. So how can they make a wise choice? And afterwards, the MSPs who were there came and spoke, and one of them was a Labour guy. And I said to him, so, you know, it was me that told off the cabinet secretary. And the reason I did that was because I was feeling like panic, because they're going to make a mistake and people are going to suffer, and I can't bear it. And why can't you get them to listen? She has to listen. If Joe Fitzpatrick can't do it, if the guy who's chairing the committee can't get people to listen, you're in opposition, you have to do it. Why aren't you doing it? And he said, it's really hard. Oh, okay then. It's really hard. What did you think being an MSP was going to be? Did you think it was an easy job? Do your job, mate. It's your job. That's how democracy works. We rely on you to get up and say the thing that keeps them in check. And I said, well, that's a worry, because that means that democracy has failed in Scotland. And he looked at me like this was news to him. I said, but mate, if you can't get them to pay attention, the chair can't get them to pay attention, harm is going to be done. It shouldn't be my job to get up on my feet. It certainly shouldn't be my job, because it's breaking all the, Parliament time is really busy. In fact, I emailed in the next day to apologise for using up parliamentary time. I didn't apologise for interrupting or for what I said, but I explained why, because I felt that they were missing information. And also I needed some help, because on Twitter that morning I had been accused of abusing a woman in the workplace by an MSP. She said that it was very hard to watch a woman being abused in a workplace. It was about me. My name was in the press. She didn't name me, but my name was in the press everywhere, and everybody would know it was me if they wanted to. I thought, you have just accused me of a crime on Twitter. So I replied and said, hello, I am the person that interrupted, and I think you're misrepresenting what I said and did, and this is what I said and did, and can we have a chat? And so there was, to be fair, there was quite a pile on with people who were like, what are you doing? This is insane. Because one of the staffers, I don't know if it's her member of staff or not, but a person that works for one of the political parties, said that the women in the public bit had been so angry we were spitting. And one of the women replied going, are you kidding? I got flung out for having the wrong kind of scarf on. Can you imagine what would happen if we'd been spitting? Get a grip. That's not a direct quote. Anyway, so she made her account private, and then she blocked me. She didn't respond. She accused me of a crime. I have to be of upstanding character to be registered to do my job. So this has got implications for me. But the chair, but he did reply, to be fair to him. He couldn't help me with that because social media isn't his department. Fair enough. So I emailed into the Gender Recognition Unit, who had replied to me, I don't know why, because I didn't write to them, as if they were responding to a complaint. But I hadn't complained. I was apologising. I was emailing to apologise, but they were justifying the minister's behaviour, which is strange, because a leader wouldn't a leader wouldn't justify what they were doing, especially if they hadn't done anything wrong. She was justifying it because she was doodling and she got caught. And anyway, this MSP hasn't responded to my tweets, can't get hold of her, hasn't responded to my emails. And so what do? She's not accountable. She's accused me of a crime. If I got arrested for a hate crime, they would use that tweet as evidence. So the Labour guy isn't doing his job. He's not standing up to them. And I said to him, if you won't do it, I'll have to. And he blinked a bit and he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you're leaving us with no option but civil unrest, because this can't go through. I don't want to live in a world where autistic children are being sterilised. You know, that pillock assumed that I had read Mein Kampf. They're sterilising children. There's a word for that. It's not a very nice word. I thought we had left all that behind in the 30s. No, not in Scotland. I won't accept it. I won't accept that people who've got a gender difference are signing up for surgery that is not good. Trans men that have a phalloplasty, when you look at their age group and you look at the outcomes, the surgical outcomes of that operation, it's not great. Complication rate seems to be very high. And it doesn't look like a penis, even the good ones. Now, I have seen a penis, and I know that when it's busy and ready for action, it doesn't feel like a phalloplasty. You might be able to get a phalloplasty to stand up on end by using inserts or gadgetry. It doesn't feel like an erection. And I think the reason that we're having so many of these operations done on these young people is because a lot of these young people have never had a partner. They have not had an erotic experience. They don't know what a penis looks like or feels like. They just see it from the internet. And then they are delighted with what they get. But anybody who has or has seen a penis looks at that and thinks, it's not familiar. Same with vaginoplasty. Trans women who get those fitted are usually disappointed. They usually have more than one revision, because it's not what they thought. And if they have you're supposed to have, you know, laser electrolysis to remove the hair for the scrotal skin so they can line the cavity. And you know, I've had electrolysis in my face. I've got polycystic ovaries, and it grows back. What do you do if you've got a vaginoplasty that grows back hair? You get an ingrown hair going into the tissue, it gets infected, you get sepsis, like, or else it's very, very hard to keep clean. It's not okay. I would accept it if we had evidence that it worked. I would accept it if urologists were looking at it, but as far as I can tell, there's an awful lot of plastic surgeons that are doing surgery that's orthopaedic surgery on shoulders, where they'll break your collarbone if you've got shoulder dysphoria, so it's the width of your shoulders that's making you so uncomfortable. Oh, no problem, we'll just break your collarbone, take a bit out, bolt it back together, you'll look narrower, it'll be fine, but you're like this for the rest of your life. So then they're going to land up in physio, aren't they? Because that's not going to last well. You might look narrower, but you're going to get an awful sore neck. So if they can show me that they can put this legislation through, but women won't live in fear and they will have dignity and privacy and safety, that'd be fine. If lesbians can have single-sex spaces for them to enjoy and socialise, that would be fine. If we have safeguarding for children, so that we don't have people that have got a conviction. It's not hateful to see that people with convictions for interfering with children shouldn't be doing drag queen story time. That's not hate, that's just basic common bloody sense. We need safeguarding in prisons so that women aren't being raped, because I have no time for that. Women should not be getting pregnant in jail. They should not be fearful in jail. They can't escape. We should have services for detransitioners and some understanding about why some people detransition. And we should have some protection, or at least some medical ethics consideration, for the trans men who go on cross-sex hormones who then have babies, which is not to say that I think these people should not become parents. I'm not saying that at all. But if testosterone doesn't have a half-life in the way that paracetamol has, where you take it and it's out your system within 4 hours, testosterone binds to the receptors and it changes the DNA of that cell. And if you're a female person using that cell to grow a whole new person, then, well, we need to know what the effect of cross-sex hormones is on that cell and how that will impact on that brand new human being who has not consented to whatever impact that individual's choices make on the whole new person. We need to know about that. And I don't think that they can figure all that out by Tuesday. I don't think they've got time. Don't think there's time to do the research. Don't think it's going to make a difference. I think it's too late. Don't think I can write to Joe Fitzpatrick and say, please listen, please. They're not going to listen. And we're not going to go away because it's too important. I like sleep. I want to be able to sleep. I worry about all this stuff a lot. And I was arguing with somebody today on Twitter, which I really shouldn't have bothered with, but I actually thought that this person might have something interesting to say, but it turned out not. He did have a new term of abuse though. He'd said cranks, called us cranks. So that was nice. It's nice for a bit of variety. And as I was talking to him, it occurred to me that the reason the French Revolution started, and obviously these things take a while to build up, but the reason it kicked off was because a group of women marched from Paris to Versailles. And that's where Marie Antoinette said, well, if they've got no bread, let them make cake. The reason that they walked hundreds of miles was because they couldn't afford bread, because they were being taxed so highly they had no money. And the market was out their budget. And then the royal family had taken, like, there was a banquet. Anyway, there was an imbalance, and these people had been complaining and they were being ignored. And eventually the women thought, oh, do you bloody think so? And they walked to the palace and they said, this isn't working for us, thanks very much. And they weren't listened to. And look what happened. there's always a sort of fondness between Scotland and France because of historical reasons. You know, there's a lot of history in both the countries, and the Entente Cordiale goes back to, I don't know, Mary Queen of Scots maybe. And it really, this little thought popped into my head, and I thought, God, it is just like that, because we have a bunch of women that are gradually getting more and more angry. This afternoon, apparently on the Edinburgh City Councillor's Facebook page, they are saying that I, as this group of 200 individuals, am transphobic, because that is transphobic behaviour. Wanting to go and watch a film about women's rights and drinking Jewish babies' blood, allegedly, is in of itself a hate crime. My city councillor, who, when he wanted a vote, came to my door, and I said, yeah, you can have my vote, that's brilliant. You can have my vote if you can answer one question. He went, brilliant, what is it? And I said, what's a woman? And we landed up having quite a robust discussion on my driveway, and he ran down the driveway to get away with me going, you coward, you won't answer it. You won't answer it, you want my vote, but you won't give me my rights. You won't give me my rights to a swimming session that's for female only, and there's a mosque in my school catchment area. So you're taking away those women's opportunity to swim. That's your job, and you want my vote? No. I want those women to be able to swim. So this is what happens, isn't it? Women are very good at doing a long game. We're very robust. We understand patience. An awful lot of us are mothers. That's why we're so upset about it, because we can see these people's pain. We can see their distress. It's like, you know, if you've had a newborn to look after, essentially a bit doolally, certainly in my state, forevermore it's imprinted on you, the squeal of a newborn. I never knew it was my baby that was screaming. I just recognised it was a baby, and I've felt this I was compelled to do something about it, and it doesn't really leave you. You know, when you've had teenagers in distress and you see somebody behaving like a teenager, you're compelled to do something about it. And also, I'm just really nice. But my First Minister is invoking, she's not Marie Antoinette, she's John Knox. She's John Knox telling me that my views are not valid, that my views are not righteous. And yet once we all got talking with these individuals outside the university, 5 of the 7 said, you're not what I thought. We were told that you hated us. We were told you wanted us dead. And I'm like, no, mate, this is why #NoDebate has been so harmful, and it's infected my parliament. And the people who are going to vote this awful legislation through believe that I want harm for these people. It's so offensive. So I guess I'm done. I'm done with sending emails. I've sent a lot of emails. I've got bloody what do you call it, tenosynovitis, tennis elbow from emailing. Not doing it anymore. It's a waste of my time now. It's too late. I think we need some civil unrest. I think that we need to, we've done marching. It's a bit cold anyway. If they will not listen through the normal channels, then I have no choice, because there's days left and I'm not having it. I'm not having this go through. I'm not having people suffer. I'm not having people's lives shortened. I'm not having women lose their rights in a civilised society like Scotland used to be. So I've got some ideas, but this is quite a long, oh my God, it's 53 minutes. Jesus wept. I'm not going into politics, am I? Or the media. There are very, very good people involved in this. There are some exceptionally motivated people. I do know where they get their energy from, because I'm knackered. I think I'm a bit burned out with it today. They are all people that care a great deal, and we are being misrepresented, including by elected representatives and by the press, and by people that actually need our insights. And game on. I've got a matter of days left, so I'm going to do some stuff on social media. I'm going to go and make a thing, and then I'll show you what I'm intending to do. And I'm out anyway as a hateful bigot. Everybody knows that I'm a crank or whatever. It doesn't bother me at all. Worst thing that can happen is that, you know, I get into trouble, I get accused of a hate crime and get arrested, or I wouldn't be the first woman to be arrested for having an opinion, or, you know, I get a report to my governing body. It's fine, because everything that I say I can back up, and I'm really disciplined about that. In the Fringe, everything has got a reference. I've recorded all the shows. If anybody complained about it, I can defend it in court, and this is the same business. I am happy to defend everything that I've said, everything that I've written in front of a jury of my peers. I am very comfortable with that idea, because as far as I can tell, if you're in court or a tribunal, all that happens is they give you a microphone and a bunch of people to speak to, and I can do that. I will do that. I would prefer not to, but we need to have debate, and we're not having it. It is not reasonable to put legislation through where you cherry pick the information that you want to hear and then tell me not everybody's been heard, because look, here's some women groups that we spoke to and they disagree with you. Because you pay them their wages, you fund them. These women that are giving up their time, volunteering and investing to build a rape crisis centre with her own money. You're not funding them, and you're not listening. So that is a summary of what's been going on in Edinburgh in the last few days. I am tired, and that's okay, because I can do a long game. I've dealt with newborns. I can be exhausted, and I can get up and I can get on with it. Being tired is normal for middle-aged women. We are very busy, we are very tired, and we're not going to stop. These women are not going to waste. So, if you're interested in not violence, not taking other people's hashtags, there's some organisations that have done really, really good work. Don't want to tread on any of their toes, don't want to mess up the stuff that they've achieved. It has to be something different and new, and it has to get press. It has to catch people's attention. It has to be evidence-based. We don't need any hubris, any lies. That's what other people do. Pink News, I'm looking at you. It all has to be something that you know you could back up if you had to. Get thinking, and I reckon we could have quite a lot of fun while we do it. Anyway, this is too long a video as it is. I'm going to go and figure out how to make some merkins, and I'll be back.